this country faces. Republicans are no longer the stewards of the pocketbook. Republicans are no longer good stewards of tax dollars. Look, we complain about President Obama's health care plan because it's unaffordable. And yet, when Republicans were in control just a short time ago, controlling both houses of Congress and the presidency, what did they do? They passed a prescription health care benefit that at that time was the largest entitlement program that this country has ever faced. It wasn't affordable then, and it's not affordable now. What I think the opportunity of running as a libertarian is number one, it's really exciting. It's the ability to tell the American people that we live in a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy. Because in a democracy, you can vote yourselves a raise. And I think that's what the Democrats think, is that you can vote yourself a raise, and that's why we're in the predicament that we're in. And we live in a constitutional republic, which means that we are a country governed by laws and the United States Constitution. But what I think the Republicans don't recognize is that you can change the law, and that laws do need to be changed. And if you just look at the law, would we still have segregation in this country? Would we still not allow women the right to vote? That seems to be the tack that Republicans take. We pass wrong-headed laws. Libertarians talk about all the things that they're not going to do in office. I think my 750 vetoes as governor of New Mexico really gives me a unique voice when it comes to all the things that government should not do. I think to be libertarian comes from classical liberal. I think the majority of people in this country consider themselves classical liberal, and that is the notion that we're all fiscally conservative and we're actually socially liberal. As a libertarian president, as a candidate for the libertarian nomination, I'm going to talk all the time about balancing the federal budget. Let's balance the federal budget. That means cutting 43% from the federal government, and if we don't do that, I think we're going to find ourselves without a country. Let's enact the fair tax. And when I talk about taxes, libertarians are anti-tax all the way across the board, and I share in that. So the fair tax is the best of the worst, but I really believe that it reboots the American economy, and that at its base, the notion that it's the fair tax is just as the name implies. It's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you'll pay. It will also promote savings. Let's reduce welfare in this country. Let's reduce warfare in this country. Let's end corporate welfare now. Let's have a constitutional adherence to gay rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to gun rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to private property rights. Let's have a constitutional adherence to women's rights. The Tea Party is right when they talk about let's reduce government spending now. Occupy Wall Street is right when they talk about, or when they express the outrage in this country over the fact that this country doesn't deal it out fairly. And at the root of not dealing it out fairly are both political parties that have their hands out to say, it's for sale. Give me money and I'll grant you your special favor, your loophole, and make that happen. And that's why we're in the predicament that we're in right now, is because it's not a level playing field. And libertarians, in my opinion, offer up that notion of level playing field. We need a strong U.S. dollar, not a weak U.S. dollar. We need to stop printing money in this country. We need to end the war on tens of millions of Americans who happen to use drugs. As President of the United States, I advocate legalizing marijuana. As President of the United States, I would end marijuana being a Schedule I narcotic. As President of the United States, I would pardon non-violent drug offenders, something that I did as governor of New Mexico. No one in this race, Democrat, Republican, either one, is talking about real solutions when it comes to the border. Look, we can secure the border without building a fence. What a waste of money. Let's make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to get a work visa, not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa. And then I just bang my head over the fact that all of the candidates, when they talk about border violence, none of them are addressing the root cause of border violence, which is the prohibition of drugs. Disputes that are being played out with guns rather than the courts. Speaking with a broad brush, I think Americans describe themselves as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. I'm doing this today because this is an agenda that I think resonates with most Americans, and it's an agenda that's not being addressed by either political party. I think we have a unique opportunity in this country to actually fix the problems that face us all, but it's not going to be business as usual. I want to thank all of you for being here. You have no idea how much it means for me to have you here this morning in support of this. I would like to just point out Kate Prusak, my fiance, Kate, just a wave, and my daughter, Saya, and her partner, Josh, that showed up. You know, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to so many of you, so many of my closest friends that are here today. Included in those closest friends really is a new friend, but it's Mark Hinkle. Mark is the chairman of the National Libertarian Party. I just think it speaks, and by the way, he is neutral. Mark is somebody who wants to promote a competitive libertarian field for president, and I absolutely respect that. And I just think it speaks volumes, though, that Mark has flown in to be here today, and I would like to turn the podium over to Mark. At the conclusion of his remarks, we'll open this up for questions and comments.
I wish you could all see the view that I'm looking at. This is very, very nice, and I'm very proud to be here. I've got a membership application in the Libertarian Party for Gary to sign. I have a voter registration card, thanks to Mike Blessing for bringing that. And so we're going to make it official today that Gary Johnson's going to join the Libertarian Party, and as he said, he's going to be seeking the nomination of the Libertarian Party. So I'm delighted to be back here in New Mexico. I actually spent a bit of time in New Mexico, in Wurtsburg, New Mexico, when my dad was a train master for the Southern Pacific Railroad back when I was a teenager. And I'm glad that Gary is here to become a dues-paying member of the Libertarian Party and to register to vote as a Libertarian. But I also want to note that I'm actually welcoming Gary back to the Libertarian Party. I note we're looking through our database when Gary was the governor of New Mexico, he was actually a dues-paying member of the Libertarian Party. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because, of course, we have had past candidates in Congress like Ron Paul and Bob Barr and Mike Gravel join the Libertarian Party, but we've never had a two-term governor, and so I'm delighted to be here and to welcome Gary. To give you a little background, the Libertarian Party was formed by David Nolan, the late David Nolan, as a reaction to the wage and price controls that were imposed by Richard Nixon, and also because he took the United States off the gold standard. And we now, of course, are living with the consequences of that. So indirectly, Richard Nixon actually helped form the Libertarian Party. We just recently celebrated our 40th anniversary on December 11th, and I'm looking forward to the next 40 years. You know, libertarians believe there are three ways to handle any social economic issue. One, do it yourself. Two, convince other people to do it. And three, force other people to do it. The first two are both voluntary and moral. The third, forcing people to do something, is both involuntary and immoral, and we reject that. Libertarians believe in a voluntary society where individuals are free to choose their own goals, their own beliefs, their own careers. In short, libertarians believe it's your life, it's your body, it's yours to control. Sadly, most people in government don't adhere to that principle. And in fact, they want to interfere with your life and they want to control your life, and we reject that. As I welcome Gary Johnson into the Libertarian Party, I'd also like to extend an invitation to everyone hearing this to join the Libertarian Party and to help restore constitutional rights and the Bill of Rights, which have been sadly stripped away by both Republican and Democratic administrations during my lifetime. To Democrats, I ask, if you still think government should lend a helping hand to those in need, I ask you to look at the evidence. Government always help themselves first and everyone else is second. That's why we have more poverty, not less, more homelessness, not less. To Republicans who still believe in small and limited government, I ask you to look at the evidence. Every Republican administration over the last 60 years grew government spending. To Occupy Wall Street folks who think government should regulate and tax the rich, again, I ask you to look at the evidence. Big businesses love regulation because it gives a competitive edge over small and medium-sized businesses. That's why the rich grow richer. And that's because they're in bed with both the Republican and Democratic leadership. I think it was Mark Twain who once remarked, when the legislature controls what is bought and sold, the first thing bought and sold is the legislature. To Tea Party folks who still think the Republican politicians this time will hold their ground and not cave, I ask you to look at the evidence. And lastly, to independent voters, as Gary mentioned, the fastest growing set of voters who have rejected both the Republican and Democratic parties, who have already known that part of the problem is the Republican Democratic Party and they are not the solution. I ask you to join the Libertarian Party and to vote for Libertarian candidates as the only real alternative to the status quo. Every political party except the Libertarian Party has lost voter registration from 2008 to 2010, the last years we have figures. So voters are rejecting the duopoly that we call the Republican and Democratic parties. They are the two sides of the same coin. In 2012, the Libertarian Party will attempt for the fourth time in its history to achieve ballot status in all 50 states. No other third party has accomplished this feat in the last 100 years. And we accomplish this all without taxpayer funds. Albert Einstein once remarked that insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. For voters and non-voters alike, don't expect things to change by voting for incumbents of either political party, the establishment parties. They are the problem, not the solution. Don't waste your vote. Vote Libertarian for a chance. Thank you very much, and if we could.
I have my checks with me that I will give you this afternoon. Where shall I sign? So right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I think so. Maybe in the process. It's up getting old.
And I. All right. And the other? Voter registration. This feels good. Great. All right. So at this time, continue with this press conference. Yes. I really believe that the fastest growing segment of the Republican Party are those that have a libertarian bent. I really believe in this agenda. It is about the agenda, and I think Ron Paul talks about this agenda. I'm certainly talking about this agenda. The more people, the more messengers that talk about this agenda, I think the more people hear it, and the more people hear it, the more they come to understand what it's all about, and the more support there is for it. I really had hoped to do this within the Republican Party. I got snubbed by the Republican Party, I think because they didn't want more than just one messenger on stage.
Dr. Johnson, if and when you secure the Libertarian nomination, who would you like to see as your running mate?
You know, that would be a great problem to have, and I hope to have that problem. But right now, I really want to stress that this is no done deal when it comes to the Libertarian nomination. It shouldn't be. It should be an open process, as the Republicans should have had an open process. So in that context, I just look forward to the debate and the discussions within the Libertarian Party about being able to move on and present this to the American people. Yes. Major issues, I guess, would probably encompass border, would be Israel, and the fact that I am not a social conservative. I fundamentally believe in a woman's right to choose. But I think these are minor differences, and for the most part, I endorsed Ron Paul in 2008. I readily endorsed him in 2008. I wish him luck in the Republican primary, but at the end of the Republican primary, I don't think he's going to prevail. And that's another exciting notion about running for the Libertarian nomination, is to be able to continue to talk about this agenda.
What did you think of the handling of the debt ceiling crisis, and how would you handle that?
Well, I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013 if elected president. Now, that isn't promising a balanced budget, because Congress has to go along with that. But if I'm elected president, what is the American people shouting at Congress to do? Balance the budget. I suggest to you that document that I present, that balanced budget document, a 43% reduction in federal spending, will be very hotly contested. And I suggest to you that spending, even if they override my veto of expenses exceeding revenue, that spending will be lower in that scenario than any other possible scenario that we could come up with. Yes. And by the way, Steve Carroll, he asked me to have this press conference here in San welcome.
Could exclude most of the Republicans, but that's definitely a big problem in that campaign, pre-nomination. Do you have any hopes at all being included in the general election race that will take place next fall?
I do, and of course, let me point out something, and that would be, are the Sunday morning talking heads going to talk about Gary Johnson running as a Libertarian candidate for president? Probably not. But will there be thousands of articles written, television productions made, radio appearances that wouldn't have otherwise have happened? Yes, there will be. And then there is always the notion that this could actually catch a little bit of fire, and the potential of being, and again, this is way down the road, but the potential of being on stage as one of 3 candidates running for president of the United States. That exists, that potential exists, and that is really exciting to me. Being on the ballot in all 50 states in the general election, I cannot downplay how significant that is at this time in our country's history. You know, I'm just going to guess at what the Hemp for Victory program was in the 40s, but yes, I would reenact that. I'm just going to guess at that one. I'm going to take a stab at that. Yes. Oh, the entire time that I was governor, I thought that I thought the legislature, the Democrats, had a real opportunity here to nationwide to set a course that other states could have followed. I thought they dropped that ball dismally, but yes, it was always about, and so I would have I did sign legislation as governor of New Mexico that were harm reduction kinds of legislation that really did make a difference, but not anything like it could have been. New Mexico could have been a real leader. I would just agree with you. I would just agree with you that that prescription drugs are, in my opinion, and I base this on my own personal experience, a lot more dangerous than marijuana, for example. But back to being a libertarian, that's a decision that you should make, and only you. And you ought to be given the freedom